Welcome back to Wartham Weekly News. This week we got a lot of stuff to cover. The upcoming event still hasn't come out, but we got a lot of devlogs of the event vehicles. The April Fool's event has come and passed, and there was some hints of the Japanese Navy possibly coming in the next patch. So hit that subscribe button. Let's get into this stuff. First up, those devlogs of those vehicles. On the 4th, we got a devlog of the I-180S, which is essentially just a I-185 without cannons. It has two 50 cals, two 30 cals, can go up to 585 kilometers an hour, which I believe is around the same as the I-185s. Can carry some bombs, probably rockets like every other Russian aircraft, and is a premium. The most exciting thing about this aircraft is that it's possibly going to be rather low in the tree, allowing you to club seals like no other. I'm thinking maybe 2.7, 3.0, although try not to club too hard in this, otherwise it will be eventually up-tiered. An interesting tidbit in the comments, someone had noticed that it said ongoing Battlefield Engineer event. The event hadn't started yet. This devlog was created with the intention that the event was already going. My assumption is that the event is in fact delayed, and will probably start from the rate devlogs are coming out Tuesday, could be Monday though. Also on the 4th, we got a devlog for the JU-388J, which initially I was rather psyched for, although after reading the devlog, I've kind of died down a little bit. On Wikipedia, it was stated that it could have had Mk.1 cannons, which would make it an alright tank buster. However, the devlog only states that it has Mk.108 and MG-151s, which aren't nearly as good as busting tanks. So the only use you'll have is blown up bombers and maybe being a cheeky heavy fighter. While it is a premium, so if you're looking to grind the German tree, that could be useful, especially depending on where this ends up in the tree. Having only two forward-facing MG-151s and two Mk-108s doesn't have much more firepower than, say, the Ta-154. It does have two upward-facing MG-151s, but those are really just a gimmick, though they're pretty fun to go meme around in. On the 5th, we got a devlog of the Project 122 BIS, which from afar looks like just any old subchaser that's in the tree. But not only is this boat premium, in the devlog it is noted many times that this subchaser was designed for destroying submarines, and it has these RBG rocket bomb launchers that fire rocket bombs there for destroying submarines. Although we don't have any submarines in game, you can fire them upon enemy boats, and if you get a lucky hit, bam, that boat is dead. And actually quite a few other people found it quite weird how hard Gaijin was pushing the fact that this is a subchaser for destroying submarines. And because of the recent UFO event where you could go underwater and then above water seamlessly, it made quite a few people start thinking maybe Gaijin is like testing stuff with submarines, seeing how the community reacts to them. I think the community would react rather strongly, as submarines are a very cool and strong part of naval conflicts during the Second World War and further on. I'm not too into the boat mode, but this looks like a pretty neat ship. I've actually used it during some of the closed beta tests. Gameplay was very much different back then. It was hard to kill a ship, so it'll be kind of nice to get back into the captain's seat of this thing. As usual, Gaijin posts around on all their social medias about the new devlog, although on Instagram they did this very odd thing. They tagged a whole lot of battleships. In fact, they tagged battleship directly, but they also the Yamato, Bismarck, and triplets. You could say, well, they're just trying to get their thing around. Anytime you talk about World War II Navy, you gotta bring up those ships. They're the big ones that everyone loves, although they missed on Iowa, although I guess that would get mixed up with the state. But I guess that is a pretty good argument for battleships being added to War Thunder. You can't even tag your boats without naming them. On the 6th, there was a devlog for the Merkava, and to many's disappointment, it's in the US tree, not the British tree. Now the British, they really wanted this in their tree. A lot. However, I was suspecting it to be in the US tree, because if you count what is coming, which I've already made a video about in the past, I probably already linked it in the corner. Russia's getting the I-180 and the Project 122 BIS. Germany is getting the JU-288 and the toaster tank. Britain is getting the HMS Tiger, which we'll get to. But the US tree, that's their #1 money maker. People love the US tree. Well, Americans love the US tree. So you can't not include them in your event. And it uses the American variant of the L7 cannon, and US relations with Israel are rather strong, so it makes sense for it to be in the US tree. Now, there are some strong arguments for it to be in a British tree. However, that's not the world we're living in. Of the tank itself, its gun is the same gun, I believe, on the Abrams, and it says in the dev blog that it has standard NATO rounds, so I think that's just what's in the American lineup. The armor, I believe, is spaced, and there's also a lot of really weird angles, so I would have to see how it does in combat to say whether it's good or not. But altogether, it's not exactly a super fast tank. Well, depending on where it lands in the tree, it could be a decent speed tank or a slow tank. Compared to an Abrams or an XM1, it's kind of slow. The final note to that, it's not premium. You're gonna have to research parts, FPE, and all the other goodies. So I really hope that it's a decent tank. On the 7th, we got a dev blog for the HMS Tiger, a post-war British light cruiser armed with what at first glance looks like a rather underwhelming armament, actually could stack up to be something serious. 4 6-inch guns and 2 turrets on each end of the ship, and 6 76mm guns and 3 separate turrets throughout the ship. All of some crazy rounds per minute. The 6 inches going at 20 rounds per minute, and the 76 is going at 90 rounds per minute. Now this is sounding really good. Oh man, a light cruiser that functions like the Project 159. However, I don't entirely think that's the case. I think this thing isn't actually going to do too well. Maybe at a distance when the enemy can't see you coming, but one of the 159's biggest problems is the fact it only has 2 turrets. 1 HE shell and half your armament is down. And if it's the front armament, you're going to have to angle your boat, exposing your sides for you to be a bigger target to get on target. Now think of that. You're the size of a light cruiser. Your guns are even further apart. I'm gonna tell you, people are gonna be throwing HE at you as soon as they smell you coming. On top of that, the anti-air armament isn't too impressive. Light cruisers are already big enough targets, but you only got 6 76s firing back at planes trying to drop torpedoes on you. However, to counter that, it being a post-war vessel most likely has proximity fused shells. At least I would hope it does. If that is the case, I have some ideas for some interesting custom dials. However, this isn't a premium, so you're going to have to grind out all those proximity shells. Have fun, because grinding boats is a pain, especially when your only backup is an oversized fishing vessel with a few Lewis guns attached to it. So far though, the German toaster tank destroyer has not received a devlog. I have a good feeling it will be a premium, and apparently its gun is a Tiger 188, so I don't expect its power rating to be too high. Probably just going to be another flak bus, which is fine. And I like how it looks like a toaster. A lot of jokes to make out of that. So the April Fools came and went, and you know, kind of boring. Flying around the UFOs was fun and all, but it lacked a certain something that made it stand out, made it fun and exciting. I would say, and probably a lot of others, that if there were some human machines for these UFOs to fight, that the game mode would be much more well received. Like, had there been tanks needing to take ground objectives, while aircraft need to give them air support, and maybe even have ships be able to also bombard enemy UFOs, while having immense armaments also being very much at risk because the UFOs can go underwater and nuke them. Personally, I think that game mode would be amazing. Having dogfights with UFOs, trying to save your tanks from being blasted by lasers. I think Gaijin needs to do more crazy events like this, kind of shake things up every now and then, not just once a year, like every few months. If I remember right, it was World of Warships that had some sort of Lovecraftian event where you could actually go and play submarines, which I believe aren't actually in their game yet. They were testing things out and they decided to have a little fun with the event. Gaijin, why can't you do the same? They don't even need to be like super crazy. Throw in some, like, I don't know, P-1000 rat event, or have people play around with comedically stupid paper aircraft. Now back to the April Fool's event. They always seem to be wanting to test things for these events. Last year we had submarines, and I believe it was mostly to test lock-on missiles and that type of stuff, and dabble a little bit in submarines. I think submarines was more of just the drapes that they covered the actual testing in. Year before that, I think we had as either modern tanks or Golden Age of Sail ships, and those were also very fun. I believe the ship one is obviously to test water physics, and the modern tanks one had helicopters, it had modern tanks of course, and it also had smoke grenades. So what is this one testing? Well, here's a few ideas that I think that they're thinking about. Most obvious ones everyone has talked about: VTOL. The aircraft were able to go from full throttle to just hovering, and could hover almost seamlessly, and the era that our current jets are going to, Harrier jets, are probably the most well-known VTOL capable aircraft, are actually within that time frame. I believe it was 69 that they were introduced. And in fact, these aircraft can't even go Mach. It's only a little over 1,000 kilometers an hour. Although them being rather ready for the game in terms of top speed, their armaments typically consisted of stuff that we have not seen yet, like laser-guided bombs and radar-locking missiles. Although patch 2.0, or whatever it's going to be called, is just around the corner. Other things they could be testing in the April Fool's event was perhaps submarines. Not only could the UFOs seamlessly go below and above water instantaneously, there was also an underwater objective to capture and some guided torpedoes, although that could have been just left over from last year's submarine event. Final thing that I've heard that they could have possibly been testing is laser-guided munitions. However, that's literally just because there was lasers in the game. Final point to be made about the April Fool's event was what's to become of the map. The most praised aspect of this game mode, the city map was well detailed, had some cool aspects to it with the overgrown city, some corridors to fly planes or helicopters through, and canals to float your boats. However, unfortunately, the map was not designed for tanks in any way, as each section of the city was cut off entirely by canals with no built-in bridges. The people did, however, make custom games with the bridges added on so you could drive your tanks around. So a bit of a modification. This could be a pretty interesting tank map. I'm not sure how you're going to explain the force field or the various buildings from around the world. Some people said it should be a helicopter map, which I guess could work, but still, even the ground targets you'd be shooting at, they wouldn't be able to get off their own islands. I personally thought maybe it should be a boat map, but there's not enough places for the small boats to hide from the big boats besides the canals. I think ideally Gaijin could modify the map a little bit to make it fit the setting a bit better. I do like the idea of an overgrown city. Maybe perhaps Gaijin was actually testing adding a New York map, or more urban, like modern urban American cities, and this is something to see how many objects they could fit into a map. Regardless, this city's kind of cool, man, and pretty well detailed. Our next major story is about hints of the Japanese Navy coming in the next patch. Replying to another tweet about War Thunder VR, the Japanese War Thunder Twitter account had accidentally let slip the next big update is due to be implemented by the large Japanese Imperial Navy. Please experience the ships in the future, or at least that's what Google Translate translates it to. Now, when this was brought to the forums, the store team dude said the DNM's tweet didn't mention the Imperial Japanese Navy in the next update specifically, just that in one of the future ones. However, someone claiming to be able to read Japanese replied saying, "When I read this Japanese publisher's post, it clearly means that the Japanese Navy will be implemented in the next major update." However, the store team dude came back saying there is no official announcement. IGN will be implemented in one of the future updates, and DM's tweet talks about this, not 1.89 specifically. Now, we do know from a past Q&A that Gaijin plans to add the Japanese Navy in the first half of this year. And the first half of this year is ending quite soon. We have about 2.5 more months. And I'm not sure how many patches Gaijin plans to release this year, but working on their standard patch release schedule, we still have about 2.5 more months for the next one. However, Gaijin doesn't like giving out dates, and this is because they don't want to get people's hopes up and then plans change. In this situation, I think that's a healthy approach to take. However, I do also think it's very likely we're going to get the Japanese Navy rather soon. And the store team dude here is just trying to make sure people don't get hyped out of control. Yet. Before we get to some of the crazy stuff that's been happening in the changelog, last week I reported on the battle rating and economic change suggestion threads on the forums that had been closed. The outcome of those is now this: there are planned updates to the economy on the 23rd of April, and these are some pretty heavy changes to the economy. The ones most people are going to be excited about are the intense RP reductions for aircraft of rank 4 and 5 and tanks of rank 5 and 6, but also helicopters of rank 5 as well. They're all having some rather heavy RP reductions and purchase cost reductions. Now, I'm not going to go over every single one because that'd make this video a year long, but generally a good amount of them are losing, it's essentially a third of their current research costs. And these changes are going to happen on the 23rd of April. What that means is, check the chart. If you are currently researching one of these vehicles, if you're past the threshold, stop. Start researching something else, because you will automatically have that vehicle fully researched by the end of this. And hold hold off buying certain new vehicles that you just finished researching. But also the reward multiplier for rank 5 and 6 aircraft, 5 and 7 tanks, and rank 5 helicopters is going up. And there are some repair costs being altered, although they're only for aircraft of rank 4 and 5. So unfortunately, for your Abrams are still going to cost a fortune every time they die. If you play the France, I'm so sorry. Now what's going on in the changelog? What's making it so crazy? Well, last Monday when I was making that video, there was a big old changelog drop. Now, the majority of these are very inconsequential. Well, they kind of are, but also like really boring. Like the weight and velocity of the Panther's smoke shells is increased. Big ones that I think are most important: PT-76B and Object 906 got ESS, engine smoke. M22 went down to rank 1 and lost its scouting abilities because rank 1s don't get scouting for whatever reason, even if they're scout tanks. But the big one that's really important, Sherman's got a massive nerf that I think most people haven't taken note of yet. The MG port is now independently modeled with its own armor of about 25 millimeters, I think I saw on the Jumbo. Now normally these MG ports are already a massive weak spot for these tanks, but this just makes it more of a weak spot. And this seems to be on just about all Shermans, although a good amount of these Shermans, they already have weak armor, so the MG port isn't so important, but on the Jumbos it is. But a day later, on the second MiG-19 all modifications, in mouse hit mode, their rudder response has been improved at high speeds, which was one of the major issues with the MiG-19. Perhaps now it'll actually stand a chance at top tiers. There was a few others that were less consequential, though if you still care, they will be linked in the description. I link everything I talk about in the description. So if you feel I didn't go into a topic far enough for you to fully get an understanding of what I'm talking about, commonly you can just jump to the description and see the link to where I got all my information from. As last little side story, Gaijin recently released a website which you can track worth under achievements. They're the same Steam achievements, but they're not requiring a Steam account. It's just worth under achievements. Now normally I probably wouldn't even bother to cover this because it's so inconsequential. However, it also shows a percentage of other gamers who have unlocked said achievements. And through this, we can get a kind of an idea on which trees are the most popular through the collection achievements related to certain trees. For example, the British one, 4% of gamers have unlocked this one. The French one says 0%, however, is quite indicative that decimals are not calculated into it, so that 0% is more of less than 1. 40% have unlocked 50 German vehicles, 30% have unlocked 50 Soviet vehicles, 9% have unlocked 50 US vehicles, 2% have unlocked 50 Japanese vehicles, and 0% have unlocked 50 Italian vehicles. Now, actually, before we use this to just dictate what is the most popular tree, there's other things we have to take into account. Like the German tree has a lot more vehicles than the Italian or Japanese trees. So to unlock 50 vehicles of the Italian tree, you have to unlock the majority of both the tank and air trees. While with German, you can unlock most of tier 1 for aircraft and tanks and even naval, and you get a pretty close up there. So while not the most accurate metric, I do think we can take from this that America, Germany, and Russia are the most popular trees, or at least are the easiest to get 50 vehicles in. Anyways, that's all the news for this week. If you have any comments or concerns, you can hit me up down below or on my Discord. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, don't hit the like button. I make these news videos every Sunday. I make random videos throughout the week. I stream on Saturdays. I want to start streaming on Twitch. I'm thinking of streaming strategy games on Tuesdays. Tell me what you think about that. So hit that bell icon to be notified anytime I upload anything. Thank you very much for watching. Tinangun Buendia. Oh yes, and I do have bonus news this time. Actually, 2 pieces. First off, the alien language and the April Fool's event was actually not an alien language that Gaijin made up. It was just a text font called Xeno Normo. But also, perhaps I missed this, but has anyone else noticed the Tiger 1's main shell has been penetrating less than what Gaijin's penetration calculator has been saying it should penetrate? And it's actually quite a lot less, penning 159 when it should be 164 at the least. And this isn't exclusive to this one shell. Also, the long 88 should be penning at least 237, and it's only penetrating 230. Probably happening to many other shells. Hey Gaijin, why isn't your calculator lining up with what you put into the game? And when was this announced? Whatever, maybe I just missed it. Oh yeah, have a good day in Spanish.